I made a video about the most good faction in Fallout, so let's try the opposite of the karmic spectrum. Evil. From pure chaos to organized wickedness, Fallout has no shortage of evil. So, who are the most evil factions in Fallout? And is there one that takes the title of being the most evil faction in the entirety of the Fallout universe? Let's get into it. Raiders. Raiders are the embodiment of chaos in the Fallout universe, while some factions will eventually get to, like the Enclave or the Institute, represent a calculated or institutional evil. Pun intended. Raiders are the raw, unfiltered version. Evil without ideology, order, or restraint. Evil for the sake of being evil. They often don't kill because they have to. They kill because the world no longer tells them not to. Their cruelty isn't really backed by a philosophy or some grander goal. Merely it's a result from the collapse of the pre-war world. When the bombs fell, gone with cities and structures, were also the rules and laws that kept people civilized. And what rose from that vacuum were those who found freedom and their true calling through violence. Raiders thrive on anarchy. They take what they want, destroy what they can't keep, and turn the suffering of others into their own entertainment. Their camps are littered with mutilated corpses, graffiti, and makeshift trophies. They act as both warnings and proof of their dominance. Notable groups like the Disciples or Fiends push this depravity to its limit. They decorate their homes with bones, skin, and blood, simply because they can. And so that places Raiders as a whole in this weird spot on the evil spectrum. They're evil, that's plain to see, but they don't have the organized evil that some of the more formal factions in Fallout tend to have. And I'm not sure what's scarier. Doing evil because you have some sick compulsion or natural desire to commit evil acts, or the more calculated evil that some of the factions will get to have. I'll leave you folks to answer that one. Moving on. The Unity. The Unity is a rare kind of evil, one that is rooted in their conviction rather than their cruelty. They're cruel too, but it's mostly backed by their stalwart belief. The movement's leader, the Master, truly believed he was saving humanity. His vision was to create a new species of human using the forced evolutionary virus. These super mutants would become immune to radiation, disease, and decay that had destroyed the old world. The idea itself wasn't really madness. The Master had his own logic, and even some compassion, if you can call it that, to justify his vision. Humanity couldn't survive as it was, so it needed to evolve. But the way that the Unity pursued that evolution stripped away everything that made people human in the first place. Many unlucky souls who fell into the Master's grasp were kidnapped, restrained, and exposed to FEV, a transformation so powerful it tore apart both body and mind. If the transformation was successful, those exposed became super mutants, strong and nearly immortal, but robbed of identity and emotion. They believed that humans couldn't thrive in the destroyed world that they had created, so they'd replace them with something better. That belief gave them something which justified every other atrocity they would go on to commit. And there's an ironic paradox in that line of thinking. The Unity tried to save the world by destroying its people. The Institute. The Institute is this colder kind of evil, one born not from hatred, but from detachment. And how can they not be detached from the experiences of the everyday wastelander when they've removed themselves from the wasteland? Living beneath the ruins of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, they see themselves as the last remnant of true civilization. Their society of scientists believe that the surface world is beyond saving, and that humanity's only hope lies underground, in its sterile white halls, untouched by the typical decay of the wasteland. To them, progress must continue no matter the cost, and this results in a society that puts innovation over empathy and control over freedom. Their greatest achievement, and perhaps the catalyst for their evil ways, is the creation of the synthetic human, the synth. These synths, notably the Gen 3 models, are near-perfect replicas of people made with organic material and capable of thought, emotion, and self-awareness. Yet to the Institute, they are tools, property to be reprogrammed or discarded as needed. On the surface, the Institute's actions often lead to mass hysteria or paranoia. People vanish in the night, replaced by identical imposters. Communities have fallen apart under the suspicion that no one is actually who they seem. It's a kind of evil and horror that doesn't come from brute force, but rather from manipulation and secrecy. As I've always said, they're the boogeyman. Like the Unity, the Institute genuinely believes that they are the future of humanity, even as they turn their backs on the world above. And perhaps the ultimate tragedy of the Institute is that it really could have been a force for good. Caesar's Legion. Caesar's Legion is one of the most brutal and unforgiving forces in the Wasteland. Built on conquest and slavery, the Legion thrives on total obedience and the destruction of individuality. Its founder, Edward Sallow, took on the name Caesar and modeled his empire after the ancient Romans. The result is the Legion, a war machine driven by an unshakable belief that civilization can only be rebuilt through absolute control. In Caesar's mind, order is of the utmost priority, no matter how many bodies are left behind to achieve it. Life within the Legion is defined by both its hierarchy and violence. Men are soldiers trained from childhood to kill without hesitation, and women are stripped of rights and treated as property. Those who resist are often made examples of, crucified with their corpses left as warnings for miles. Entire tribes have been erased for refusing to pledge their allegiance. To outsiders, this brutality can often seem senseless, but to Caesar, it's simply the way of life. He believes the wasteland is too fractured and too wild to survive without dominance. And so, through fear and bloodshed, he forces unity where none could exist naturally. Unlike the common raider, the Legion's evil doesn't come from madness, but from their own belief. You know, this line might be a bit tiresome as I've mentioned it quite a few times already, but Caesar genuinely sees himself as the savior of humanity, destined to forge a lasting empire from the ashes of the old world. And it's that conviction that makes him dangerous. His followers see him as a god, and through their devotion, they've surrendered every trace of their humanity, freedoms, and individuality. And so beneath Caesar's iron grip lies one simple truth. A world rebuilt on cruelty is probably not one that will last very long. The Enclave. The Enclave are the last remnants of the old United States, a nation that refuses to die even after many of its people already have. Descended from government officials, high-ranking military officers, and scientists and corporations who survived the Great War, the Enclave claims to be the rightful authority over what remains of America. They operate with a belief in purity and order. In their eyes, the Wasteland's inhabitants are little more than impure pests, unfit to inherit the world that their ancestors destroyed. Twice now, different instances of the Enclave have attempted to mass exterminate much of the Wasteland. Across the series, the Enclave has surfaced in hidden bunkers, oil rigs, and other secret bases, striking from the shadows with advanced power armor and experimental weaponry. They're typically armed with technology far beyond the rest of the Wasteland and its factions, yet time and time again their power is undermined by their own arrogance. Every attempt to reclaim the surface has ended in disaster. Still, the idea of the Enclave persists. Whether it's in the Fallout TV show, the Broken Steel DLC, or the next-gen Fallout 4 update, we know that the Enclave is merely waiting for its chance to rise again. Vault-Tec. And the final faction worth taking a look at is Vault-Tec. Unlike many others, its evil began long before the first bombs fell. It was a corporation that sold safety, while quietly turning its customers into test subjects. The company built hundreds of vaults across the country, promising protection from the coming nuclear holocaust. Behind closed doors, though, these vaults were never really meant to save anyone. In reality, they were laboratories designed to test how people would think, act, and suffer under controlled conditions. Now, what makes Vault-Tec's cruelty distinct from the chaos that came after the bombs is its detachment. While their motives have never really been revealed, aside from their ties to the Enclave, it would seem that the company really only cared for research and profit. And so, when these vaults that were marketed as salvation turned out to be nothing more than crazed science experiments, it made the company's betrayal to the American people sting that much worse. And ultimately, Vault-Tec proves that evil does not always announce itself with banners, drums, or soldiers. Sometimes it hides behind a logo, a blue and gold color scheme, and a thumbs up. And that wraps up what I believe to be some of the most evil factions in the world of Fallout. Despite their differences, these factions are bound by a single dangerous idea: that they alone know what's best for humanity. Whether through control, conquest, or experimentation, each believes it's saving what's left of humanity. Yet in doing so, they're only bringing it closer to its destruction. That's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Which faction do you think is the most evil? Join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
And the sun will rise in the north. No, the northwest, for 44 days and 67 nights, and we'll never notice.